somewhere in a parade today on a YouTube short or a YouTube video, I noticed they said that there was a mounted division, and one of their main tasks, obligations, is to deter war. See, we have our American Revolution, what our founders communicated about it, and how James Madison is the only founder we know the name of specifically. They understood. They did that for a reason, and they declassified that and how and why we had that. They had to do that, but a breaching method discerned that before our people did. So all natures of sophistication, they're pretending passions and emotions. For example, Joe Biden had to pretend passions and emotions that he can't believe that and pretend it's an insult to the people of the services, distinctly from the other presidents, because they're individuals forced to collusions, to force the blame on other things, others or ourselves. Worse than racism, for example, where they use racism in self-guided roles, using that where and how the breaching method attacked every single human difference, sickly distinctly, to measure and maintain how it did that in nature's demonstration of it. Not everyone not allowed to speak about that, and simultaneously needing to blame on other things, others, or selves. Bad things caused by that and nature's demonstrations of it. And the breaching method knew that they would pretend not to realize that when they're speaking with passions and emotions, convictions, and or with calmness. As psychopaths, there is not legitimate care for there has never been legitimate care for veterans, for kids, multi-front too. The difference of that is used, and middle age. They're increasingly at each age and nature of campus putting fake things in databases. They have all kinds of drugs and medicines, crimes concentrated, but also organized crimes at those locations slash S, and at the difference of there next to it, or the people tied to them, other natures of conjunctions to them, roots, conjunctions to that and to that, like on off the state judicial branch offices, involved with wire crime acts and methods, with the names involved, with the uses of these locations sacred, faking transcripts and databases next to them, having those having people act tied to predicate acts and predicate acts methods, and changing what is actually communicated to each. How they get away with this is recorded too. Forgiveness is so you guys don't change and fake what we're saying. We have to bring up names. They brought them up. They're also lying about what they think when we bring them up after, because they never stopped having any. The difference of the guilt of the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, terrorists, witch trials, courts, etc. The difference of guilt of the people that were the names of the people, the sciences, the industries. When did our founders communicated for us to understand how the economies were forced and how overt criminal enterprises, private ones, their differences of guilt, or the three branches of government. Increasingly, there's organized crimes with the state judicial branch offices and the state corrections offices of Connecticut involved interstates, not just Washington, D.C., New York, and Connecticut. These are also people with Rhode Island a bunch of ways, and Massachusetts and Vermont, New Mexico, people with digital crime acts and methods. It is true that I confirmed what he said about a letter, but I didn't really send the letter. Then they said he was dead. A Mr. Hugh Ogden, as one of the people interstates with people from Maine involved, also with a former governor of Illinois, increasingly involved with the FBI and foreign and domestic people involved with the Saudi attackers. They have roles with East Hartford locations, involved with child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, first forced, and the groups involved then and now forcing that have roles with other natures of organized crimes, and with the polling locations and campuses, all ages and natures of campuses, increasing fire campuses in ways that are implied because of their roles directed to high things related to like their roles with fire departments, people from Russia, people from but the same countries. Harvard Hospital is recorded communicating confessions with the FBI and military through wars. They have roles with the World Trade Center attack and with the military putting fake motivations too. Increasingly, Oliveri family will sought me out. I never talked to them. Sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm roles of various natures of federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, frauds, and roles with the judicial branch offices and the executive branch, with currently foreign influence uses of all along Route 175 and next to campuses. Trinity College has a whole bunch of people putting fake things in databases with their educators and with themselves behind people's backs too, so they can't get on paper with the interbranch switching and forging names tied to an Eric Oliveri and a whole bunch of people tied to him, involved with some proven child abusers, leaders of kids, sexual medical offenders of kids. These are not legitimate people with foreign and domestic military, all these different countries, involved with concentrated corruption with probate court judges, where people are locked in veterans' homes. People, they have torture, extortion, facsimile, slavery methods, and fake motivations for it. The Department of Corrections is being and has been used criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions, raw. They have collusions /s with all natures of crime scenes and hold predicate acts methods, plural, where there is a singular method by that at campuses relative to where and to how and to why. You guys have the motivations to pretend not to realize when people speak about how we have black pupils, white eyes, for example, or how we could discern where and how others are trying to counter things our founders communicated for us to counter, and that nature itself communicates for us to counter syntactically. But you guys are simultaneously preventing it by keeping fake sides of issues, collusions. CNN has digital crimes with whiting forensics and with people tied to Gail King, involved a number of ways with all kinds of medicines and medical corruption. I never met Gail King, but it's recorded on and off Central Connecticut State University, the difference of the guilt there or next to it. And WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and others. They have real collusions with Gail King with this, intercities with the FBI Director Robert Luskin and people involved with the Saudi attackers through their uses of how all these countries like Russia was here, China was here, and we were there. We weren't there yet, but there was a breaching method there already in Russia and China. And then America's founders were born. That's why even people in England were happy and cheered when America started to fight them, because there were internationally monitored conversations and roles with those conversations as the torture, extortion, facsimile, slavery method against every individual voice, no matter if it's how powerful a leader becomes, as long as they're above locations, areas, and states that blamed and are blaming on other things other than themselves, while they have to value the having been too. Also relative to where to how so long they could keep pretending that no one written that people on the mass scale can't see right through. You know how there are criminally foreign influence databases since semi-ancient times, since before modern religious messengers. The names of the people of the sciences have been leaving out and faking exceptions, forcing things to courts that can't afford to have discerned. Honestly, what our founders left us to discern, like why and how. There's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. And then and now, still, other communicated for those places and for our founders. Then our founders communicated for us to understand about how and why George Washington was also counter-extorted and forced to counter-extort others at Old Wethersfield, Connecticut, right before the last battle of the Revolutionary War. So other it was and is being told, and they have further the sense and sensibilities of people's self-valued roles, also with collusions at campuses of all ages and natures. In other words, certain type of victim / hyper victim had principles of reason replaced when you guys were kids. You guys are being child abused. The differences of campuses A through Z rolls with it, and the collusions with it. The differences of the families with fire campuses and medical campuses. They run in with the people with the campuses needing to hide when they're caught. And the news at the same time. The differences of the intelligence at the network locations or next to the locations. Use of that as /s uses of that is also recorded manifest. Next to Fox Connecticut News, they are leaking are increasingly collusions with names intercities, next to Fox Connecticut News, next to and conjunctive to it, and next to and conjunctive to WFSB, Channel 3 News of Connecticut, next to and conjunctive to WTNH, and to their sources' houses. There are people on Ridge Road involved with WTNH and the FBI and courts and Wethersfield police chiefs retired with sexual and medical offenders of kids, increasingly with the houses and businesses next to and conjunctive to Hartford Hospital, our intercities, collusions with all kinds of natures of organized crime acts and methods, and uses of their legitimate roles with such directed to use that to pretend they don't realize the other things they're involved with. A whole bunch of people have John Maano, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. He's acting tied to them with their roles, planting predicate acts and facts in databases, with and as people from off campuses colluding with names at them. And they'll tell you this. They're just faking and changing. They're changing transcripts, but they're also just completely faking transcripts and forcing people to bring up other people's names. And then they're lying and saying, well, I don't know why. And they're using that truth for a lie. For a breaching method, there are other names involved. The same names. In other words, we're going to go into how many different countries are involved with the family members that have been planting fake ties, fake natures of ties to the intercities, and as ones with the intercities with the names next to the campuses. A bunch of people next to Trinity College sought me out and will tell you too, is recorded other ways. They're pretending other now, maybe in the background. A lot of them had it faked for them. People from Wethersfield tied to them. Put fake ties, fake nature ties to me since I was a kid, with ones I involved in further then and now. They're changing and faking, hiding what I caught them doing, including with Sandy Hook campuses involved with all kinds of organized crimes, including with the judicial branch officers, corrections officers, all sides of cases and subject treatments. Ever notice how they bring up slavery and leave out the breaching method against Native Americans, or bring up the breaching method against Native Americans and leave out slavery, leaving out how sickly distinctly the colonists stood. Every nature of difference is used by this breaching method, replacing what nature shows us we have the same color eyes, different color eyes at the same time. And there are exceptions. Some people have just apparently black and white only eyes. In other words, we have only the same eyes as us. But we have our other species bodies, fish, birds, mammals, two eyes. Even insects look like they have two eyes to me. I don't know, it's 2009. In other words, black pupils. That's what I was trying to say too about saving time and money. And then medical takes my thing and starts trying to profit on it with putting the slides so people could discern, look at things already magnified. So they're wasting time. They're needing to waste time at campuses, put little tedious things that shouldn't even be wasted because they already have those campuses used. Criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions, raw employment /S off the records with the breaching methods employment /S of the differences of the guilt of overt criminal enterprises or of the private ones or of the campuses collusion /S with its rules with databases on top of that off the records in ways that no one even realized. No one even realizes because it's also through hyper additional other apparent motivations, natures, needs, interests to keep those plural things and different people and things needs to self-value the same sequence shifts, the same methods, needs, natures, and styles of pretending things like as critical as slavery should be entertained, leaving out other things. And like the nature of debate contains quality aspects of nature inherent to it, active to it, and progressive to it that shows a breaching method has stayed hyper sophistication superior to the help of the parties, as the states and as the federal agencies, worse than criminal incompetence here, and regarding differences, including of veterans. You see how the veterans' homes are manifest exactly the way buildings in the background of some of the best rap videos are. like in New York City. The suburbs were designed before America's founders were born, with slavery entrenched northern colonies and southern colonies. It was a torture, extortion, back-to-nature slavery method, and collusions against everyone's self and everyone else to an extent. Otherwise, that body was sensed. How they motivated that was making every difference hurt sickly distinctly in a non-distinct way. And the only way to properly counter it, the way nature is showing us, and the way our founders showed us, is to address how sickly non-distinctly everyone is being hurt and are forced to pretend not to realize by the breaching method. Even when they pretend not to realize, that's recorded. There are proofs of it. You guys don't follow mandated law on a mass scale. Oh, hell. Big branches about, no, excuse me. I'm sorry. Please get them on paper, one name and sequence. Get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. These are people also involved with CNN through elections. They're putting fake transcripts in databases with their sources. These are also the family members of courts and their kids involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids, and doctors, foreign and domestic, personally and professionally involved with them and with their extended family members, covering up differences, rackets from the past. And it's manifest that way where and how they are used remotely. Central Connecticut State University has roles within foreign and domestic intelligence where here and there they don't have one body who was not criminally foreign influence, tactical delusions wrong. And while they were and where they were and how they were getting away with pretending to be a patriot to nature, the breaching method employed that. That's recorded too. You have to have the people who need to deny things, get them on paper, one name and sequence. At the courts, they just put more fake things in the databases, fake motivations too. They're using their differences and other people's differences, even the sacred differences. In other words, like black people's whites of eyes. In other words, people who will sacrifice their bodies, and then they're going to jump in and dishonestly too. Though it's inter and intracultural, every difference. This per the readings, the statutes too, that has them involved with sequence shifts, and the lawyers of the FBI and of Wethersfield Police, in ways that can be used to show how the lawyers of the agencies and of the branches of government are criminally pointable, tactical delusions raw as well. In other words, we have means. They're also separating our means to care for the people properly. In other words, oh, well, that's how we do it. We have all these things in Congress. The Congress will change out like that because they have roles with predicate acts methods with that building, the location /S, and the difference of guilt there or next to it. A whole bunch of people tied to one's name, Violet, will tell you this. They sought me out as a complete strangers. And they tried to make exceptions that other, which was confessions about their roles with intelligence families near me, increasingly involved with predicate acts and identity theft, fraud, slanders with Wethersfield Police, putting fake transcripts also with New Britain Superior Court, Harper Courts, Connecticut District Court, and their kids and family members. Victims advocates, increasingly collusions with child abusers, leaders of kids, first forced, and overt criminal enterprises, private ones, now terrorists too, the same ones. They're pretending passions and emotions, victims advocates. These courts have had collusions with all natures of crime scenes, but through worse. Since founding, the difference of their roles with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, recorded how kept needing to hide the same sequence shifts, collusion, self-valued, even when they're not in the same cases. These locations never stop being used, the difference of their guilt or of the other people. They self-value that exploited too. In other words, get them on paper, one name and sequence, black people here.